All right, so thanks again for taking the time to do this. First question is, tell me a little bit about Sage. How did it get you started on this path?
Yeah, so by trade, I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, and I have a center called Sage Holistic Health and Wellness Center. And our focus is like kind of looking at someone's overall well-being through a holistic lens. So we're looking at things like with health in the body, or at least asking those questions. Mental health is our main focus, and then also like the spiritual component too. Sometimes we have clients who are interested in that as well, from all different walks and of all different kinds of things. So we really believe at Sage that we want to look at the full picture of that, and that process started a long time ago. For me, my partner and I were very interested before we were partnered. We were having lots of great conversations about the connection between the body and the mind. This is over a decade ago, before there's so much work that's been done around that, with research and all of that. So anyway, he and I had these conversations, and this is kind of where we started thinking, oh, it'd be so cool to have a center where we get to focus on that. I was in grad school going back to get my like degree and then licensure and all of that to be a therapist. And that's kind of the idea behind Sage. It was officially started in 2017. And so we are going about 7 years strong here. In August, we'll celebrate 7 years, and serving people, mostly therapy services. We do also offer Reiki energy healing sessions, which is another form of healing. It's an energetic approach that was rediscovered in Japan, early 1900s, not to get into a whole history of that, but we do offer those services as well as training at our center. So just, I found my passion in this. This is a second career for me. I was in sales and marketing, getting the life sucked out of me in corporate America before this. But I've just really loved doing this deep, meaningful work with clients to help them wherever they are on their journey of seeking more happiness, fulfillment, contentment, balance, all of that.
Yeah, so because that was literally my next question. Like, what services do you provide at Sage at your company? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So mainly, I mean, I'd say probably 90% is therapy, mental health. So we'll work with individuals, we will work with couples, we will work with families. We do lots of work with kids and adolescents. So I mean, that is really the main thing that we do at Sage is therapy. We are in the state of California. I know we're virtual here, so licensed marriage and family therapists and other therapists are bound to the location where the state that they're licensed in. So we're able to see people in the state of California. Um, so that can be either virtually or it can be in person. Location in person is in Orange County, California, or like in Tustin, Santa Ana area for those of your listeners who are like aware of Orange County and those that local geographical area. But yeah, anywhere in the state of California. And for Reiki, I mean, we can do distance Reiki sessions anywhere. We have people fly in to get trained in our Reiki training because it's such a great program. So yeah, I mean, those are a bit about the services that we offer.
Mm-hmm.
We also, I'm sorry, I was going to throw in too, we also offer self-defense classes, which is like, it's a lot about increasing awareness of surroundings and being able to work with what you have in that moment, if there is a moment, but first of all, trying to prevent those moments from even happening. My partner teaches that and heads that up. He's got a big passion about making sure people feel safe in their physical bodies, in their environments. And so that's another program that we have as well for at Sage, is like the self-defense.
Yeah, because what I was gonna ask is what sorts of like methods or approaches do you use specifically as a licensed marriage, therapist? What sorts of strategies do you work on with individuals? Because you work with a variety of individuals. You mentioned kids, adults,
Yeah,
basically everybody. Yeah.
yeah. There's so many things. I mean, as therapists, I mean, we go through grad school and we get trained in these things, but you really do the work when you're in, they call it practice. It's your practice, right? Like you're practicing and working with people because there's an art to it. It's really meeting the client where they're at, with whatever they present, right? And finding something like I might be trained in a bunch of different methods, but when it comes to like what's working for the client, that's going to really depend on that relationship that you have with your therapist to find out what does work well for you. So, an example of that is like there's something called cognitive behavioral therapy. I don't know if you've heard of that, CBT. Um, it's a very structured therapy. It's about identifying your thoughts and being able to see like the emotions that go along with that and seeing the relationship between the two. And so, sessions that are CBT focused entirely are going to be very structured at the beginning of the session. All right, what have you done for your homework and how are you, what are we going to work on today, like as far as issues and situations, and then working through kind of like these thought records and things like this. That may work great for someone, and I've had clients that they love that, and then other clients that are like, do not give me homework. I don't want to do it this way. This doesn't even make sense to me, and they just want to do more talk therapy. um, I think one that's important to note that we do offer is called EMDR. Have you heard of this therapy?
No, I have not heard.
So this is one that has gotten pretty mainstream recently, especially with all of the connection between the body. And there's this book called The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk. And it's talking about this research about how we go through really traumatic events, or sometimes it's not even like a big trauma, like they call it a big T trauma, something significant like an airplane crash or like a sexual assault, some things that are really like jarring experiences, like war veterans, people going through some of these things. That's called like a big T trauma. But there's also little T traumas that are just as big of an impact on someone's life, like microaggressions, or like a consistent feeling of anxiety all the time, or feeling unsafe everywhere you go, or someone who might be from the LGBT community, just feeling that, again, those microaggressions all the time. Like it may not have been a big T trauma thing, but these little T traumas add up to. So this is something that our body remembers. If our mind is avoiding it, it can still be like stored in the body on a cellular or neurological level, is this research that shows this. And so this therapy called EMDR, it stands for, it's a very long name, eye movement desensitization reprocessing. That's what EMDR means. And I can link you to like a blog on the website or something. And if anyone wants to do a deeper dive, but this is a therapy that is really working to connect what is stored in the body, what's going on in the mind, what kind of emotions and sensations, even physically, do you feel? Is it a tightness, like a tightening when you think about these events? And then it's working to reprocess that through, it's going to sound silly or nuts, but it's eye movement, back and forth eye movement, which simulates what we do in our REM sleep. And that's allowing us to kind of put these experiences into a more adaptive place in our network, in our body network, in our mind network, and all of that. So a lot of info, a
Yeah,
lot of
yeah,
info,
yeah,
but
it's really good info. My next question is, what impact does this kind of work have on the greater community? What have you heard from the clients that you've worked with? Because you've worked with a lot of people.
yeah. You know what? I think it's so like we have all this systemic stuff going on around us, and sometimes it can start to feel very overwhelming and like helpless of like, what can we do to like make changes in the world, right? In big picture things. But like honestly, I feel that my work as a therapist, the work that our therapists at our office do, that really personal work that people do themselves, like it's hard work to go and face challenging things. Our clients are so courageous coming in and talking about what is troubling them or what is not right, and wanting to live a more balanced, fulfilled, happy life, right? So I think that work, so an individual who comes in and does some of that healing so that they can function in a more effective way in their life and in their world, is going to do that ripple effect. I know it sounds a little cliche, but I think that's the result, is that it makes our world a better place when we have more people who are healed have worked on their stuff, have gotten to a place where they have like said, I'm not going to let that define me. I'm not going to let these struggles that I've been experiencing or what I've been dealing with, like let me live in this like less than life. I want to get to a place where I can move beyond it and feel like I've done that work. And I think that's what makes our community a better place, safer place, happier place, like just more joyful. I think that's the word.
Mm-hmm. One question that I often thought about recently within the realm of psychology is that, oftentimes, like psychologists, they see a patient and they tell them about their experiences, but they don't know a lot about their own experiences and how they can relate to that. So you know what I mean? Because they don't have that personal, relatable experience. Because I remember I used to be in therapy. I would have these sessions with this therapist, and there would be conversations where, we didn't agree or we didn't understand each other, or like this person didn't get my point of view. Because I was talking
Mm,
to a friend about this recently, where
yeah,
she said to me, like, I try to have sessions with a female therapist because I want to feel seen and I want to feel
yeah.
heard and understood. So my question to you is, what is it that often therapists don't get, when addressing, clients, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, that's such a good question. And I'm glad that you brought that up. I was actually on a podcast last week, I think it was, or 2 weeks ago. We talked about the same thing. So this is very serendipitous. And, so it came up, I'll share personally for me too, is like I was seeing a therapist when I was pregnant and going to have a child, my first child, and I was super anxious and I wanted to know whether that therapist had kids so that I could know, am I going to be is she going to understand what this is like, right? And she didn't answer that question because there's oftentimes with therapists there's a little bit of that separation, right, where you don't know all the things about that therapist's life. You don't know all the time whether if it's something that's not seen, right, like you don't know how they identify, you don't know what their struggles are, you don't know if they have a disability. Some disabilities are not seen, right? You don't know that what that person's life is. There's often that question that comes up is, will they understand? And I do believe through my own personal experience and then through my experience as a therapist myself, it is possible to be felt, seen, and understood, even if you have opposing points of view, right? This is empathy. This is like you being able to develop empathy for your clients. As a therapist, that's our job, right? To develop empathy, to remove our own values and our own biases, and to be able to sit with someone and be able to join their worldview, to be able to really understand and do our best to understand. I mean, of course, we'll never understand what it is to be our client because we don't live in their shoes. But that's so important for me to say to a client, like wanting to make sure they feel seen and wanting to make sure they feel understood. But you don't have to have all the same like demographics, or you don't have to have the same life experiences to be understood. And that really points back at that word empathy, like the ability to really like dig deep into someone else's experience for the purpose of supporting them, rather than it being about where the differences are. I don't know if that answered your question or if that maybe brings up
Yeah,
any other follow-up
yeah,
questions.
it makes sense. Yeah, because on that point, what can therapists do to sort of like say, hey, I see you, I understand you, I'm there for you. Like, what sorts of approaches, strategies can they do to sort of make sure that they say, I got you, I understand you, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of this is unspoken or nonverbal, right? Like, I think that there's just the presence of a therapist. Like, when someone's listening to you and caring about what you are saying, and when you feel like you matter to someone by some of those nonverbal cues. So I think that's one. So if you, as the client, are not feeling that, then it may not be the right fit for you, right? It's okay with therapy. I think it's like permission to, if you want to call it fire your therapist or whatever you want to say, go to a different therapist. Like it's not the same as like a medical doctor who it's like, it's not as important whether you like the doctor or not. You'd like to. I mean, it's great when a doctor, like a medical doctor, has good bedside manner and they do a good job talking to you and treating you like a human, right? But if you're having that experience with a therapist and you feel like they're not getting me, I am not sure what's going on. Like one, you can talk to them about that. Like, I'm not sure you're really getting me. I'm not really sure that this is the right fit. You're going to learn a lot by how that therapist responds to that, whether or not you are going to be able to continue that conversation. And if you just know in your heart, like, this doesn't feel good to me, I don't want to open up to this person, this is not a good fit. That's happened to me multiple times. I do my own therapy all the time. And I've had experiences that I thought were going to be great. And I walked in first session, I'm like, I'm not going back. That didn't feel good to me. There's so much like interpersonal relationship work that happens in the room with a therapist that you need to feel comfortable. You need to feel like, even if you don't trust them completely right away, there's got to be an inkling that you can trust them potentially. If if someone's like got a lot of trust issues, which I mean, I think a lot of people have a lot of trust issues, right? Like you've got to like, I'm not going to walk in and say, I trust you completely. Here's everything. But I feel like maybe I can do this work. It's like a lot of trusting your own gut, your own intuition, and being okay with like saying, I'm going to go try this with someone else. It's hard because then you have to go through that whole intake process again. And like, oh, I have to tell my whole history again to someone else. But, you don't have to tell your whole history. You got to give some details. But I just really try to empower the client to like, you get to be the one to decide if this feels okay. You get to decide if you're feeling seen and understood. And like, if you're not, it is okay to just go try again and go see someone else. Have the courage to do that. I know it takes effort, but I highly recommend it. I mean, if you feel comfortable having that conversation with your therapist, I recommend that too, because you might unfold an entirely new dynamic in that relationship. But I feel that really is not about what I'm doing as the therapist, other than just being me. I hope that all therapists are bringing themselves to the room, doing their own work to make sure that they're taking care of themselves so that they can show up fully for their clients and all of that we need to do as therapists. But really, as the client, if that's not feeling good, like just don't waste time, continuing to try and connect with someone who's not feeling connected.
Yeah,
So
it's like in any relationship. You meet someone and if it doesn't work out, then just it's not meant to be, you know?
yeah, yeah. And just like, I think sometimes because it's more of it's like in the medical realm, people think like, oh, I have to stick this out. They're the expert, they're the authority on this. I just have to do what they say or whatever. And it's very different with therapy because it's really going to be about how safe you feel. And it's okay that some people don't make you feel safe. It's okay that you don't feel comfortable. If you're female wanting to work with a female, it's okay that you don't want to go see a male therapist, right? Just like finding who is going to feel like a good fit.
Yeah, it's what people are, are comfortable with and
Yeah,
can share openly. Yeah.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
exactly.
Yep.